What if I told you that fear is not just an emotion, but a weapon? What if the greatest danger coming upon the earth is not war, not disease, not financial collapse, but something far more subtle? Today, you are about to hear the testimony of a woman who clinically died and says she was shown how fear will be used in the last days to control hearts, silence truth, and prepare nations for deception. So I encourage you to watch this video to the very end so as to get the full information on this testimony. Before I begin sharing her testimony with you, I would want to know where you are listening from in the comment section. That way we can get to connect as a family. Also, share and like this video so that others can get to hear this testimony. If you have done that, may the Lord bless you. Now, let's get right into it. Listen and be blessed.
My name is Miriam. I am a wife and a mother of 2. Before my near-death experience, I lived what most people would call a normal Christian life. I went to church every Sunday. I believed in God. I prayed sometimes, especially when I needed help. I tried to raise my children with good values, but if I am honest, I struggled with anxiety. I worried about everything. The news stressed me. Every headline felt like a warning. Every global event felt like the end. If there was talk about war, I panicked. If there was sickness spreading, I stayed awake at night. If the economy shifted, I feared for my children's future. Fear was always sitting quietly in the background of my life. I didn't realize how much it controlled me. My near-death experience happened suddenly. I had a severe allergic reaction that caused my throat to close. Everything happened very fast. I remember struggling to breathe. I remember my husband shouting. I remember the sound of sirens becoming distant. Then everything went silent. It wasn't like sleep. It was like stepping out of my body. I was aware, but I was no longer in pain. I felt lighter than I have ever felt. I could see my body below, people moving around it urgently. But I wasn't afraid. In fact, for the first time in years, I felt completely calm. Then the room faded. I found myself standing in what looked like a wide open space. It wasn't a room, and it wasn't outdoors the way we understand it. It felt vast, peaceful, and alive with light. The light wasn't harsh. It felt warm, like it knew me. I became aware that I was not alone. I did not see a face clearly, but I sensed a presence beside me. The presence felt powerful, yet gentle. I cannot fully explain it, but I knew I was in the presence of holiness. I felt completely seen, not judged, not condemned, just known. And then I heard a voice. It wasn't loud. It wasn't frightening. It was steady and clear inside me. The voice said, "You have allowed fear to disciple you." That sentence pierced me. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say, "No, I trust you." But images began appearing before me like scenes projected in the air. I saw myself watching the news, gripping my phone tightly. I saw myself imagining worst-case scenarios. I saw myself speaking fear over my children without realizing it. I saw how often I assumed the future would be dark. The voice spoke again. "Fear has been shaping your expectations." Then the space around me shifted. The peaceful light dimmed slightly, and what looked like a horizon formed in front of me. I saw cities, large modern cities like we have now. People were walking, driving, shopping. Everything looked normal. Then suddenly, screens everywhere lit up at once. Phones, billboards, televisions, public displays. An announcement spread rapidly. I could not hear exact words, but I could feel the emotional wave it carried. Panic. Within moments, people began reacting. Some ran into stores, others began shouting. Traffic stopped. Faces changed from calm to terrified. The voice beside me said, "Watch." I saw leaders speaking urgently. Their expressions were serious. Words like emergency, safety, and protection appeared on screens. Then I saw something that troubled me deeply. Many people did not question anything. They did not pause. They did not pray. They simply surrendered their peace. I felt a heavy wave pressing over the cities, not a physical force, but something spiritual. It was like fear itself had weight. It moved fast. The voice said, "Fear will move faster than truth." Then I saw believers. Some gathered together in homes, praying quietly. They were calm. Concerned, yes, but not controlled. They read Psalm 91 out loud. They reminded each other of God's promises. But I also saw other believers. Some were posting panic online. Some were spreading rumors. Some were convinced that every event was the final disaster. I saw how fear blurred discernment. Then the vision shifted again. I saw another wave, different event, different cause, but the same emotional reaction. Worry spread like wildfire. People accepted restrictions, new rules, new systems, simply because they were afraid. The presence beside me spoke again. Fear will prepare hearts to surrender what they would never surrender in peace. That sentence shook me. I began to understand something I had never fully seen before. It wasn't the events themselves that were the greatest danger. It was the atmosphere of fear surrounding them. I asked, "Are these things certain to happen?" The response was gentle. "The earth will experience shaking, but the level of darkness depends on the faithfulness of my people." Then I saw something beautiful. In the middle of a fearful world, small groups of believers began praying boldly, not begging in terror, but standing in authority. I saw them refusing panic. I saw them helping neighbors instead of hoarding supplies. I saw them speaking hope into chaotic situations. Where they prayed, the heavy wave of fear weakened. It didn't disappear instantly, but it lost power. I saw one mother kneeling beside her children, speaking calmly while chaos played on the television behind her. Her voice was steady. "God has not given us a spirit of fear." As she spoke, the atmosphere in her home changed. Peace filled the room like invisible light. The voice beside me said, "Perfect love casts out fear." Then I understood something personal. My anxiety was not just affecting me, it was shaping my home. The vision shifted again, and this time I saw something darker. I saw individuals who began using fear intentionally. They understood how powerful it was. They amplified threats, repeated alarming messages constantly, and magnified uncertainty. The more people listened, the more fearful they became. The voice said, "Fear clouds wisdom." I saw believers who were once bold becoming silent, not because they stopped believing, but because they were overwhelmed. Their focus shifted from faith to survival. And then I saw something else that surprised me. I saw joy as resistance. Small gatherings where believers worshiped sincerely. Laughter around dinner tables. Families choosing gratitude in hard seasons. Every time joy appeared, the dark wave recoiled slightly. I realized fear hates worship. I began to weep, not because of destruction, but because I saw how easily fear could steal our witness. I asked, "How do we stand?" The answer came clearly. Stay rooted in truth. Guard your mind. Do not rehearse disaster. Speak my word. Then I saw scripture appearing like living fire in the air. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. The words were not just text. They carried strength. I felt something being removed from me, like chains breaking quietly. For the first time, I saw fear for what it was, not wisdom, not preparation, but a spirit that seeks permission. And I had been giving it permission. The presence beside me said something I will never forget. You cannot control what comes upon the earth, but you can choose what rules your heart. Suddenly, the light around me grew brighter again. I felt myself being pulled backward gently. The cities faded. The visions closed. The presence remained close for one final moment. Teach them to prepare spiritually, not emotionally. Peace will be your testimony. Then everything rushed backward. Then I woke up. When I woke up, my chest felt heavy, and my throat was sore. I could hear voices around me. Someone was crying. Someone kept saying my name. My body felt weak, but my mind was clear. Clear in a way it had never been before. The fear that used to sit quietly in my thoughts was gone. Not because life suddenly felt safe, not because the world looked stable, but because something inside me had shifted. The days after that experience were strange. I was grateful to be alive, but I was also processing what I had seen. The images of cities, the waves of panic, the heavy spiritual atmosphere, they replayed in my mind. But what stayed with me the most was that sentence: fear will prepare hearts to surrender what they would never surrender in peace. I began to examine my own life. Before my experience, I checked the news first thing every morning. I scrolled late into the night. I consumed information constantly, telling myself I needed to stay informed. But what I was really doing was feeding anxiety. Now, when I looked at headlines, I noticed something different. I could see how easily fear was amplified. Words were chosen carefully to stir emotion. Images were repeated over and over. Uncertainty was magnified, and I remembered what I saw. Fear moving faster than truth. I'm not saying that dangers are not real. The world has always had conflict, sickness, and instability. But what I saw was that fear multiplies the impact of every event. It spreads faster than facts. It settles deeper than reality. And when fear becomes constant, people stop thinking clearly. I used to believe that being worried meant I cared. But I learned that constant worry does not produce wisdom. It produces weakness. One evening, not long after I recovered, there was a sudden emergency alert on our phones. The sound alone used to make my heart race. But this time I paused. I felt the familiar pull toward panic, and then I remembered the peace I felt in that light. I remembered the scripture that appeared before me: God has not given us a spirit of fear. I took a deep breath. Instead of reacting, I prayed. It may sound simple, but that moment was a turning point. I realized I had a choice. Fear would knock, but I did not have to invite it inside. What I saw in that experience was not just about global events. It was about daily life. Fear doesn't always come through dramatic announcements. Sometimes it enters quietly through constant negativity, through conversations that assume the worst, through imagination that paints dark futures. I used to imagine disasters constantly. If my husband was late, I imagined accidents. If my children coughed, I imagined severe illness. My mind rehearsed tragedy as if it were preparation. But it was not preparation. It was training my heart to expect darkness. After my experience, I became aware of how much authority our thoughts carry. When fear dominates a home, children feel it. When fear dominates a church, faith weakens. When fear dominates a nation, control becomes easier. That was one of the most sobering things I understood. I saw how people, in moments of panic, agreed to things they would normally question. They surrendered peace for promises of safety. They stopped asking deeper questions because they were overwhelmed. But I also saw believers standing steady, not rebellious, not reckless, but anchored. That word became important to me. Anchored. An anchor does not remove the storm. It keeps you from drifting. There have been difficult seasons since my experience. Moments where uncertainty filled the air again. Moments where rumors spread quickly. Moments where social media was filled with alarm. But now, I respond differently. Instead of absorbing everything, I filter it. Is this information helpful, or is it feeding anxiety? Is this voice leading me to prayer, or leading me to panic? Is this discussion producing faith or fear? I began to limit what I consumed. I stopped watching endless commentary. I stopped replaying worst-case scenarios in my imagination. And something beautiful happened. Peace became normal, not temporary, not fragile, but steady. There is something powerful about a calm believer in a fearful world. People notice. I remember one conversation with a neighbor during a tense period when many were anxious about the future. She asked me, "Why are you so calm? Aren't you worried?" And I realized I wasn't pretending. I truly trusted God in a deeper way. Before my near-death experience, I believed in God. After it, I relied on Him. There is a difference. Belief can be intellectual. Reliance is daily. I also understood something else clearly. Fear is not always loud. Sometimes it hides behind responsibility. It disguises itself as concern. But when it steals sleep, peace, and clarity, it is no longer healthy caution. It is bondage. The presence I encountered did not show me specific dates. It did not give me a timeline. It did not tell me which event would happen first. Instead, I was shown a principle. In seasons of shaking, fear will be used like a tool. But believers are not called to echo panic. We are called to reflect peace. That does not mean ignoring reality. It means facing reality anchored in truth. I have learned to pray differently. Instead of saying, "God, don't let anything bad happen," I pray, "God, keep my heart steady no matter what happens." That prayer has changed everything. I also teach my children differently now. When they hear troubling news, we talk about it honestly. But we end in prayer, not speculation. I remind them that our hope is not in systems, leaders, or stability. Our hope is in God. The greatest thing I saw in that experience was not destruction, it was choice. Every person had a choice about what would rule their heart. Fear may visit, but it does not have to stay. And I am sharing this now because I know how easy it is to be swept away by waves of anxiety. I lived that way for years. But peace is not weakness. It is strength under control. If shaking comes upon the earth, whether through conflict, disease, economic uncertainty, or something unexpected, the greatest testimony believers can have is not loud arguments or dramatic predictions. It is steady faith. It is kindness when others are tense. It is generosity when others are hoarding. It is prayer when others are panicking. That is what I saw, and that is what changed me. When I stood in that light, fear had no voice. And I realized something simple. If I stay close to God, fear loses authority. I cannot control global events. I cannot predict the future, but I can guard my heart, and that is enough.
What Miriam experienced carries an important message for all of us. Notice something powerful about her testimony. She was not shown dates. She was not shown specific political names. She was not given dramatic timelines. Instead, she was shown a spiritual principle. Fear is contagious, but so is peace. In a world that constantly pushes urgency, crisis, and alarm, believers must guard their hearts carefully. The Bible tells us clearly that God has not given us a spirit of fear. That means fear does not come from Him. Yes, the earth may face difficult seasons. Scripture tells us there will be shaking, but the question is not only what will happen around us. The question is, what will rule within us? Will we rehearse disaster, or will we stand anchored in truth? Miriam's experience reminds us that preparation is not about stockpiling anxiety. It is about strengthening faith. If you are constantly overwhelmed by headlines, take this as a loving reminder to step back. Pray more than you scroll. Worship more than you worry. Because in the end, the strongest testimony in uncertain times is a heart that refuses to bow to fear, and that peace, real peace, points people to God. If this testimony spoke to you, take a moment right now to examine your heart. What has been discipling you? Is it fear or faith? Thank you for listening. If this testimony has blessed you, please kindly share it with others and leave a like and subscribe to this channel for more of these testimonies that will bless your life.